Elbows up, hot flashes on, and zero fucks left to give. In this episode of Giggles and Shit, we are going there. From Canada getting called nasty while we quietly tank billions in US exports, to grocery store showdowns over American strawberries. Yeah, we're pissed. And we're not alone. We're talking trade wars, tariffs, and why Canadians are reading labels like their lives depends on it. We get into global politics, misogyny, and while the world still can't handle a female leader. And just when you think it couldn't get more heated, menopause enters the chat because nothing says midlife like geopolitical rage mixed with a full blown hot flash. It's real, it's raw, and it's exactly what happens when Gen X women stop staying quiet. Welcome to episode 8. Welcome to the shit show. Hi, I'm Jill Button.
And I'm Dianne Cross.
Welcome to the
the Giggles
Giggles
and
and
Shit
Shit
Show.
Show, the podcast where two Gen X friends talk about midlife chaos, careers, relationships, aging parents, adult kids, and everything else life throws at us.
The show is honest, unfiltered, and occasionally a little inappropriate because sometimes the only way to survive the insanity is to laugh at it. So grab a coffee or pour a glass of wine or something stronger and join us for some giggles as we talk some shit.
Welcome to the Giggles and Shit Show.
Hey Jill, I hear there's something you want to talk about on your shit list. Let's hear it.
Yes. Okay. So, as a Canadian mother, when you come at my country, my economy, and my kids' future, the mama bear in me comes out because our neighbors to the south and the felon running the circus apparently doesn't understand how furious Canadians truly are. We're not annoyed. We're not disappointed. We are furious. A lot of Americans don't truly understand how much of a rupture the relationship has felt. We've been threatened with the 51st state. You've waged war on our economy, our sovereignty, and you have no idea what you've unleashed. Elbows up is not just a saying. In January, Donald Trump whined about Canada being very nasty on us, on trade, on the Americans. And then a month later, he goes on Fox News and he says Canada is one of the nastiest countries to deal with. One of the nastiest Canadians. But I thought all Canadians were nice. Not so much. And then the US ambassador, Pete Hoekstra, admits there's a reason why the president referred to Canada as mean and nasty because of some of those steps that we've been taking. Those steps, the ones he's referring to, are things like Buy Canada, diversifying our relationship, buying our own products, pulling their alcohol off our shelf, and spending our money at home. Then Howard Lutnick, the US Commerce Secretary, stood up literally in an international economics forum in Washington, D.C., and called Canada, the way that Mark Carney has been moving us forward, the worst strategy I've ever heard. And then he said, this is a grown man we're talking about. They suck. This is Howard Lutnick, a cabinet secretary, also a visitor to the island. An international stage, the best he's got is they suck. That's not a policy. That's a man who's losing severely, and he knows it. So let's talk about what nasty Canada has actually cost the US. So here we go. I've got some stats that I want to read off. So, US spirits exports to Canada are down 70%. That's a collapse of 203 million down to 60 million. We're talking Jack Daniels, Tito's, all across most provinces has been yanked. Canadians pump over $20 billion annually into the US economy through tourism. Cross border car trips are down 35%. Air travel is down upwards of 25%. And these are American jobs that are actually being impacted. And here's the one I think Trump and his clown show needs to sit with. Canada is the number one export market for more than 30 US states. That's 60% of all US states. Canada is the number one customer. So you don't threaten your biggest customers, call them nasty, say they suck, and then wonder why the relationship is strained. So I'm pissed. I'm sorry.
We're
This
all
is just,
pissed.
yeah, like it's crazy. 80 to 90% of Canadians are now actively choosing Canadian over American. I'm reading food labels in grocery stores like my life depends on it. I can't see
Yep.
the labels half the time, so I'm calling Sam over. Sam, does this say US? And then this one lady in the grocery store said, "Oh, but they're $1.99. This is for strawberries." And I said, "I don't care. They're American. I'm not buying them." Very loudly. And I think she kind of walked away really fast.
No,
So
same.
Canadians are doing it across our country. You're doing it. I'm doing it. This is big for our country. We're talking no US products, no wine, no bourbon, no thanks. Sorry, not sorry. And this isn't just Canada. We're watching this same playbook take place across the globe. Australia, Europe, Hungary. There was just a recent election where the right wing Viktor Orban got displaced by the new liberal leadership, which is exciting.
It is exciting.
Did you get a chance to see Mark Carney's speech at Davos?
Oh my God, yes.
Oh,
Yes.
so that
Yeah.
speech is resonating on a global scale. The talk about middle powers aligning, leveraging each other, diversifying trade, reducing dependency, and then working together to bolster leverage against the US. That's not desperation, that's called strategy.
It
And
is.
it's a global coordinated response to a bully who thought everyone would just sit down and take it. And then Lutnick goes crazy and he doesn't understand why. Like, why are Canadians so mad? Why did this happen? Sorry, but not fucking sorry. I'm sorry. I'm just not sorry. I love Americans. In fact, I have family who lives in the US, but this has just got to stop. I think Americans, I don't know if you ever watch those shows where there's this guy in the US who reacts to things about Canada. And we all know that Canadians know far more about the United States than Americans
Than
know
they do
about
about
us.
us.
And you see people reacting like, oh, are Canadians mad because we wanted to annex them to be part of the United States? Anyway, I can't even.
I can't even either. I totally feel you on the groceries too. I was at the grocery store this morning and I need lemons. I do, but I couldn't find any that weren't from the US, so I didn't buy any. I'm looking
Yeah,
specifically, even I wanted oranges, but instead I got mandarin oranges that came from Morocco because
yeah.
I will not buy food that comes from the US. I look at literally everything I buy, and if the only option is a US option, I leave it. I'm not buying it.
Agree. And I do that as well. And Sam is like, but mom, I really want strawberries.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, the good news is Canada is actually getting really smart. There's a lot of vertical growers, greenhouse growers that are actually popping up in Canada. And it speaks to the strength of Canada and the diversification. I think people are really starting to do things in Canada that we've never done before. There's a lot of
Yes.
entrepreneurs that are building vertical greenhouses. They're starting a lot with microgreens and things like that, lettuce, things that you would normally import or could only get during the summer. They're
Mm,
now looking at year-round manufacturing. I'm proud of Canada, I have to say.
me
Like you
too.
said, there's so many Canadians who would rather go without than buy American products. And it's the way that we fight back. Like we are not large enough as a customer to the United States to get their attention, but there are things that we can absolutely do to make a dent. And I think we are making a dent and it's
Yeah.
being felt by the United States. And I'm sorry to the Americans who I hold zero ill will to my family in the United States, across the United States. I still love you, but you have to do something about your administration because they are literally trying to destroy my children's future. And we haven't gotten out of this unscathed. Like, we are being impacted by this. Our auto sector
Definitely.
is on fumes. We're diversifying and looking at new sectors like electric vehicles, which I think is great, replacing traditional auto manufacturing with, I mean, they were even talking about the Arrow, which is a Canadian
Ooh,
e-vehicle. Yeah. So that's super
oh,
exciting. And I'd
that is
love to see
exciting.
that.
Me too.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on how, like, you know some Americans. Have you had any conversations with them about what's going on in Canada? And are they oblivious to how we feel, or are they sort of getting the message?
No, I have family in Florida. My dad's sisters all live in Florida, and I chat quite often just through Messenger with my Aunt Kathy. She is outraged on our behalf. She fully understands how terrible this is for everybody up here and feels bad for the Americans that didn't vote for the Tangerine Palpatine either. And I call him that because I feel like we're getting so close to Star Wars. It's insane. It really is. If you look at the progression of the Emperor in Star Wars, Senator Palpatine, who turns into Emperor, the similarities between his behavior and Trump's, same with Hitler and Trump,
Oh
but
gosh.
we're honestly on the same trajectory as Star Wars. The amount of corruption, the amount of just it's all disheartening and saddening, and I feel bad for anybody in the US that didn't vote for that administration
Yeah,
because they
I
must
know,
be
but
sitting there
remember,
thinking, not us, not us, it wasn't us, but
I know.
it's
I
sad.
I I totally agree. I do think that the majority of Americans did not vote for this, but the other side did, right?
Yeah.
So we're not talking about an overwhelming majority of people who did not vote for Trump. There was a good portion of the population who did. And that, in my mind, is itself quite disturbing.
Mm.
People are okay with the way in which he conducts himself. And, the way that immigrants are being persecuted
Yeah.
because they are different and they sound differently, they look different, and they're a scapegoat. Like you referenced Hitler, Jews were also persecuted because they were different, they spoke differently, they believed differently, and Hitler used them as the scapegoat. And it makes you feel better when you have a loss of control to blame somebody for all of your ills, for all of your problems. And that's what's happening. People are buying into the hate and the rage because they feel a loss of control. If you think about, when Trump came to power, it was almost like a reaction to Obama and how the world had progressed, the United States had progressed to a point where a black president could actually get elected. And a lot of people were feeling like, well, this is out of control now, and his policies are out of control. And their natural tendencies started to surface. And when somebody started to give a voice to those tendencies, to those sort of us versus them, it started to bring out people who felt emboldened to say, well, I don't want black people, or I don't want immigrants, they are the ones taking my jobs. It's just, a lot of people felt like, well, we just have to hold our breath for 4 years and it'll all be over. No. So now we
No.
have a global oil shortage based on a war that nobody voted for and nobody knows what it's about. We understand Iran is not the best regime. We get it. But you can't just go in and start bombing people and think you're going to solve any of those problems. And now we've got people around the globe who are suffering. The Philippines is a good example. My executive assistant, Jade, lives in the Philippines. He is on rolling blackouts. He only has energy for on certain days, electricity. And because they get 80% of all of their oil from through the Strait of Hormuz. So they are just dramatically being impacted by this, and it's not their fault. It's not their fault.
No, all because of one individual. And so here's my take on the vote. When Trump was elected, you can say that the same. There's a bunch of racist people that thought, oh, hey, here's my guy. He thinks the same as me. I think it's worse than that, honestly. I think when it came down to Trump versus a woman,
Mm,
any woman,
hmm.
because there's still such misogyny in the world. There's still such
Yeah,
this whole patriarchal nonsense.
yeah.
I honestly think that you could have put anybody else on the other side and they would have won
Yes,
versus having a female president. And how
yes,
sad is that? It's so sad. We
yes,
truly need to shift back to matriarchal rule because the patriarchy has done a piss poor job of managing things up to now. And it's
yes.
about time the women took over.
Yes, yes. So I think you're right. I would say that the United States, I don't know, will ever be ready for a female president, a gay president. I'm talking about Pete Buttigieg. I don't think they'll ever be ready for that. And I think you're right. I think it was not necessarily people who were, you know, prejudiced. I do think misogyny is rampant. In fact, it's
Yeah.
actually, again, this whole emboldened idea. Have you heard of this trad wife? There was a post by Arlene Dickinson about the rise of trad wife, so traditional wife.
Mhm.
And I'm not a traditional wife, never have been. And it wasn't ever practically possible for me to be a traditional wife and to stay home and be kept by the man. And that's not a partnership. It's not something that I believe in or my husband believes in. But there are men and there are movements out there who believe that women's place is in the home and that they should be seen and not heard and that they should be subservient to their men. And it makes
Yeah.
them feel better because of the pushback. And it's all about the Me Too movement, is the other thing that I think has really created this, again, backlash. Men feeling that they are being persecuted by women because for being male. And it's not
Mhm.
about that. It's not about persecuting men. It's about supporting women. Men need to be men. We can't do this on our own. It can't just be about women. And thankfully, we have amazing partners. I know my partner, Peter, has been hugely supportive of me and my career. I'm sure he would love it if I had, dinner on the table every single night and I was doing more traditional wife things, but I think he'd probably be confused.
Yeah, I'm all for if that is your thing and that's your goal in life is to just, and I shouldn't say just, if you are the type of person that would be content to be a trad wife and you have the economic stability with
Yes,
a one person income to do that, by all means. But
for
I
sure.
think even if you start out that way as a young couple and the husband is the sole breadwinner and the wife is at home raising the children, how long before she becomes, caterpillar soup, comes out on the other side before she thinks, what have I got to do now? The kids eventually grow up, they move out, they do things on their own.
Yeah.
And if that was your sole focus through the whole marriage, I have a feeling a lot of those relationships end up not okay after the
Yeah.
fact.
Yeah, and how long before you get traded in for a newer model, right?
Ah, yeah,
So,
that's true too.
yeah. So just a bit of personal. My mom and dad were together from a very young age. My dad was actually in the army and my mom was quite young and she didn't go to school. I think the highest grade she attained was grade 8. And they eventually got married, had obviously a good relationship for 4 kids. And then it got to a point that they were no longer able to stay together. And my mom had no education. So it's not that
Right.
my dad traded her in for a younger model, but it was my mom's decision to actually leave. There was a lot of turmoil in the relationship, not to kind of get into the details. Suffice it to say that my mom was able to come out the other side, but didn't have a ton of prospects. And in some respects was a traditional wife up until the time that we owned a restaurant when I think I was 7 when we bought our restaurant in New Brunswick. And then that restaurant and the stresses ended up ending their marriage. But my dad, to his credit, ended up taking care of my mom until the day she died. He would give her support, he would support us kids. And I think it comes back to, I think what you said early on is it's if you can afford to do that, if that is what you want to do, realize and respect that isn't everyone's ability, nor do they have that choice. But if that
Yeah.
is your choice, then you should have that choice. I think women and men should be partners and they should have the right to choose how their relationship progresses. But if a woman does decide to become a traditional stay at home wife, and something does happen and the relationship ends, she should not be left on her own to fend for herself because she has sacrificed her career
Hmm.
or a career and maybe an education to become that traditional wife. And I have to say that there are women who are now homeless because of this, who are living in assisted, housing or not, because they've never had the benefit of getting an education and a job.
Or
You know,
credit.
yeah, yeah.
It's a
Anyway,
tricky.
it was just burning listening to all the nonsense coming out of what's happening right now. And I think that we're going to talk about in an upcoming episode or we're going to talk about or already have. This is just is
Yeah.
dominating
Yeah.
everything. And it's just, I want to make sure that we are not just talking about things that are happy. Beef tallow, by the way, beef tallow, just for the quick update.
Good for you.
So if you read our newsletter, there is beef tallow in the link, and I ended up getting the one that was by. Now I need to get my glasses. Rich Grand,
Mhm.
and the ingredients, interestingly, are beef tallow
Mhm.
and raw honey. That's all that's in this.
Amazing.
Yeah, so we'll see. I've been using it now for less than a week. But we're not just talking about beef tallow. We're talking about real shit that's happening in the world.
Yes.
Okay, rant done. I'm done.
Okay.
Okay, until next time, gigglers.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, sorry. I'm all heated now. Maybe
Yeah.
I'm having a flash. Well, that's it for today's episode. As always, we had a few giggles and we talked about a lot of shit.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Giggles and Shit Show. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend who could use a giggle.
You can follow the show and join the conversation on Substack at gigglesandshit.substack.com. That's giggles and shit with an n.substack.com. Subscribe to get new episodes, stories, and behind the scenes updates from the show straight to your inbox. Until next time, keep on giggling through the chaos and talking shit. Done. Nailed
Done.
it.
Nailed it. Oh gosh.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Giggles and Shit Show. If you loved today's episode, don't forget to subscribe on Substack at gigglesandshit.substack.com so you'll never miss an episode. You'll get all our content, podcasts, videos, and newsletter delivered right to your inbox. Join our chat to post your very own shit or hit list. We want to hear about the shit that's driving you crazy or making your week a hit. Come laugh, cry, and keep it real with us and our Gen X community.